It's time to get a new perspective on life, and possibly some new pants. We're taking a quick peek at DARQ. DARQ, or DARQ, is a 2.5D puzzle platform game that I think I pronounced correctly. I assume it's supposed to be said as dark, but there's already a game called DARQ, so Unfold Games decided to get fancy when naming their game. It's also possible that it's something in another language other than English, which is the only language that I speak, but I highly doubt it. DARQ, as the name may suggest, is a rather dark game, both atmospherically and tonally. The game doesn't give a whole lot to go off of for setup or story in of itself, but its store page states that the bald, gaunt young chap you find yourself controlling is named Lloyd, and he's trapped in a web of nightmares. Unable to awaken from his deep slumber, there's nothing else to do but go deeper into the dreamscape in the hope of finding some kind of exit. As I said before, the game itself doesn't do anything to tell you this, nor even how to play the dang thing. But while most would find themselves trapped in these situations, Lloyd's got a more creative solution. After all, what's a wall if not a vertical floor? And after a while of pressing buttons and looking up the game's controls in the options menu, players can discover the joys of defying gravity and walking on them. This is the real main gimmick to DARQ. The game entirely focuses on changing the perspective of the camera and Lloyd himself to look around the world differently and access new areas. The game has an overall clockwork vibe to it, as levels change to create more and more impossible spaces. Personally, I really like this kind of thing, and the devs build upon it in some interesting ways as the game goes on. Changing perspective is generally how you go about completing the game's puzzles. Well, I call them puzzles, but only a few of them are something I'd really classify as such. For the most part, the solution for them is usually just using the correct item in the correct place, even though the game doesn't do anything to really tell its players what goes where and when. There's a limited amount of things to interact with at one time, so it's pretty easy to figure out where something goes when it's the only item you have access to and there's only one place you can put it. Sometimes the game will play around with this idea by having basic items such as a watch become large enough to be used as a bridge, or having multiple machines you need to power but only having one power source you need to move around between them. But DARQ is no old school point-and-click adventure game with outside-of-the-box logic. Even when it comes to puzzles that I would actually call puzzles since they require at least a small bit of thought, I never really found any of them all that difficult. The only time I had any trouble at all with any of them was when they were time-based and I had to figure out where to put Lloyd and when to put him there to complete them. DARQ isn't all fun in games, however, since this is a nightmare, and what's a nightmare without monsters? DARQ's general art design of exaggeration for pretty much everything is really interesting, and I gotta say that it's pretty cool. But the devs seem to play things kinda safe with their enemies. Most, if not all of them, are just some kind of human that walks around a small area. Even though they look rather frail themselves, they'll make quick work of Lloyd if they happen to catch him, and, for some reason, Lloyd is a pacifist. Even when dealing with gun-toting, lampshade-head dudes, your only option is running, hiding, or stealthing past whatever happens to be in your way. Enemies that aren't part of some kind of chase sequence are both slow and unintimidating, which just makes them tedious to deal with. What's worse is that they all kill Lloyd instantly if they happen to grab him, something that only really happened when I got tired of dealing with them and began to lose my patience. There was really only one instance where I found these guys to be any kind of threat, and that was when I had to solve a puzzle as the camera spun around constantly to show something sneaking up on me from behind. It was a clever idea to add tension to the situation, but something like this only happened once, and that was about it. All of the other time, enemies just sorta are there. For the most part, while DARQ has some really neat ideas, it's generally way too easy. While there is an inventory for sorting items that you found, it rarely fills up with much at a time, and everything's generally used about as soon as you get it. Lloyd has no problems grabbing whatever he can, even without any context as to why he may need it, so many times I was able to solve a so-called puzzle right off the bat, since I already had the answer of what to use when I got there. The game is rather short as well, due to how simple and easy its levels tend to be, which is a real shame. I'd love to spend more time on the world the devs created and see more of its mind-bending design, but it always felt like as soon as a level really got me invested, it was over. There is word that the devs are planning to expand the game with some kind of free DLC called The Tower, and while it looks interesting so far, as of right now, there's only the main base game available. Overall, DARQ is a great start for the developers and did a good job of getting me invested in its world, but really lacks depth and content to keep me there. Levels are too short, enemies are too tedious, and puzzles are just too easy. There's also a massive lack of music throughout, with the only time anything really plays being during the credits sequence. While the quiet does help build the game's environment, it can make the times when you're just walking around kinda dull. When the music does kick in, it's pretty good, but 99.9% of the time, all there is to hear are just sound effects. Not bad sound effects, mind you, but still nothing super tense or interesting. The game does a great job of being creepy without falling into the trap of cheap jump scares, and the game's art and level design reminds me a lot of Little Nightmares, even if it doesn't feel quite as full and polished as that game did. I really hope the upcoming DLC is able to add some good depth to the game, as it has a lot of potential, and it may be worth waiting for that to come out if you think the game looks up your alley. If you're looking for something a bit on the spooky side with a unique gimmick, then give DARQ, or Dark, a try. Just keep in mind that it might not be as fulfilling of an experience as you hope for. Thanks for watching. Please let me know what you guys think of the game or this video in the comment section. I'm MegapieMan, and I'll talk to you guys later. Want to see more of my stuff? Click on the video on the left for Rack Exoverse, a roguelike tower defense FPS, or click on the video on the right for Metal Wolf Chaos XD, an over-the-top mech game about saving freedom as the President of the United States of America.